let's chat Carnival Row, guys. I'm here with the creators and cast of Carnival Row. Welcome to our set in Comic-Con, guys. Good to see you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
It's awesome. Good to be here.
If there was ever a show that was made for Comic-Con, I think this is the place for you guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Fantasy period epic. Yeah.
Checks all the boxes, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious. I've seen the first episode of this. It's quite a world you guys have created, quite a world you get to be a part of here. Talk to me about like when you got the pitch or the idea for this, the script. Were you like, this is amazing, or this is batshit crazy? What is this? It's a little bit of everything.
Hadn't seen it before, really. Felt like, and I've been a part of some fantasy movies before, but it felt like.
Go on.
I know what you're talking about.
It felt like a world that we hadn't seen before, and that was really exciting to me. It was like, a cast of characters that I was like, wow, I'd love to see how these all intermingle and take shape and form and unravel.
Yeah, you see, we kind of grow up with fairy tale creatures, the idea of fairies and trolls and like Mr. Tumnus from Narnia type of thing. Yeah. But what's amazing about this show is that it kind of puts like dirt under the fingernails of everything, and it's kind of gritty and grimy, and it's what happens after the fairy tale kind of ends in a way for a lot of these creatures who are driven from their homelands. So that to me just immediately struck me as hugely original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always like a sucker for like big swings, right? You could just go for it. Don't don't hit a double, either get a home run or fail miserably. And you guys are going for it.
Can you explain that in
Yeah.
cricket terms?
No,
'Cause
sorry,
I
no,
don't
I
understand.
definitely can.
Shoot for the stars. Is that what you're talking about?
Shoot for the stars, basically.
Was that basketball?
Too long a conversation. All I'm saying is you guys went for it in this one.
We're
clearly.
dancing around the hoop.
It's one of those things where it's like you have to go for it, or it's like if the half version of it is just a miserable failure. You know, it's like if the only way that you're going to stick the landing is if you commit to like doing a jump that's going to kill you if you don't.
Yeah.
So are there reference points for you guys, or what you told the cast in terms of like, because it is kind of combining things that are familiar to us, but kind of combining them in an interesting way?
The thing that Travis said to me very early on was, this is like, the fantasy worlds that we're used to. Like, take Lord of the Rings as an example.
Why not?
But imagine.
Good to Orlando.
Imagine if centuries had passed from those familiar places, because we've actually never really seen like sort of this industrial age type of time period in fantasy. It's always either something that's quote unquote present day, or it's something that's sort of very medieval.
Yep.
And this is one of the many things that makes it wholly unique. Is this is a time period that we've never seen before.
And part of that was like to just thinking that you look at old traditional fantasy, and it has very sort of conservative sensibility, and that like here's where all the dwarves live, and here's where all the elves live, and they all dress alike, and they all look alike, and they don't really like each other or talk to each other or whatever. But if you fast forward past an industrial revolution, and then suddenly there's cities, and then suddenly these populations are brought in and abrading against each other in these interesting ways, then you can start to tell what feels like sort of a more modern story using those old pieces. And I think that's kind of the combination of those two things, like these really classic, iconic, fairy tale creatures in this sort of strangely more modern story. I think was very interesting.
And also the intermingling of like these different species, right? So like Orlando, for instance, your character is a human character, but like I'm curious from your perspective, like you're seeing Kara as this fairy, or you're kind of like, I kind of know what that is. I've done that kind of a thing before. I don't have to do the wings or fly or do anything this time. Was that kind of like a unique, different perspective on it's a much different fantasy world, obviously, but there must be a sense of deja vu a little bit, or no?
Yeah. Like I said, honestly, when I read this, I was like, this is totally unique and not like anything I'd seen. When I was trying to describe to my friends who the Fae folk were, and they were like, well, there were fairies, what are you? I was like, yeah, but these are like badass fairies. These are like cage fighting kind of, and like they're like prostitutes, and they're really, and risque, but they're also they're super authentic and real, and you can look at them and feel, you can empathize with them. Mm-hmm. That's what's awesome about the show, is we can we can stand back and address some really big issues, which I think the show does do at some points, but we can look at it objectively and without a sense of guilt or shame or anything else, because we're looking at like these sort of fantasy.
It kind of gives you license to get into
it gives you
some cool
license
stuff.
to experience it in a different way, which I think is one of the really cool aspects of the show.
I mean, you mentioned, you've kind of alluded to this, that it's risque, it's adult. Like, I'm watching the first episode, I'm like, okay, there's more fairy sex than I was expecting to see. Probably I've ever seen.
Which you've never seen.
I don't think I've
by the
ever
way,
seen
how cool is that?
Well, and part of it is like, because you're dealing with these sorts of things, you have to figure out a way to tell the audience very early on in the first episode. It's like, no, whatever you're expecting, this is going to be darker and more adult than what you're expecting.
Yeah.
And there's no quicker way to do that than a fairy sex scene.
You're like, okay, this is the world I'm in now. Got it.
Yeah. Like, and it's a tone, but that's a tone that we want to live with the series, is that it's sort of like it has a kind of whimsy, but then it has these moments where you're sort of startled.
Yeah. I've been talking to, we've started to talk to all the cast of the big shows and movies that are here. As you guys know, like comic book movies have taken over the world, basically.
Really?
Really? Oh, you haven't? Okay, I'll get you some DVDs or something. Has all the actors here, have you all at some point in your lives auditioned for a superhero film? Is that just a rite of passage for an actor right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
You've never have.
No, no.
There was talk that you were going to be Batman at one point.
Do you know what? That's weird. I was just thinking, I did meet with Christopher Nolan, and,
There you go.
but I didn't audition, and it was more of a conversation of, I was in the midst of all this like other stuff, and I was like, I can't. I was like, he had this other script which I loved. It was called Keys to the Street. It was this tiny little movie, and I was like, dude, I couldn't even imagine trying to. Because
He was doing this. He was like, I can't do Batman.
I was like,
Hard pass on.
I love Christopher Nolan so much. I was like, I'd like run, not walk to work with him. But at that time in my life, it
the
was
wrong
like
time.
It was like Lord of the Rings, Pirates was happening. And I was
Yeah,
just
you
like,
had a lot
I
of
need to like
franchises,
be
yeah.
off the grid for a while because I don't know which way is up.
So when you eventually see those movies, which are obviously amazing, is there any kind of like, oh, what I would have done with my Batman, or is it just sort of,
No, I think Christian Bale was phenomenal. You know, like I mean, but it's funny now. I think about it, and I'm like, yeah, it was an interesting window. But those movies, Christopher Nolan. I mean,
yeah, any
we
actor
are not
would
worthy.
kill
You know what I mean? But whatever.
Totally.
I have killed.
You literally, their bodies. They're
He's like, I literally killed people so I could play Batman.
So looking forward to showing off this show to the excited fans that are here. You're in the right place, as I said. If you're going to debut footage and kind of expose this to the world, there's a lot of love in San Diego.
Fans here are just amazing, aren't they? Their dedication and their like love of these worlds, these shows, and how they're just like the costumes. It's just such like joy.
It's unlike anything,
Yeah.
you know, in the world. And
It's like an art form. It's
other
like
conventions.
Yeah, it's like an
completely different.
amazing like people's.
When we're sitting there on the set, we're looking at dailies. I remember turning to Mark and like, you know, we're watching a scene and it's like, people are gonna lose their shit when they see this.
Yeah.
Like, they're gonna, like this is great.
We are built for Comic-Con.
Literally.